Hello, wannabes and creators, and welcome back to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that demystifies business for artists. And today on the show, we have my friend Tara Massan. She is the owner of Forever Be Moved and an old friend of mine. Tara was actually one of the first people to take me up when I was doing free coaching calls, and she actually took my advice, which was fucking shocking. And even more shocking was that advice worked. And her business is thriving right now. And it's awesome to see. And so I wanted to have her on the show just to kind of catch up and figure out what the hell she's doing now. Before we do, I'm at it again. I have another Kickstarter for my book, Pixie Dust. It is about a pixie monster hunter that is betrayed, murdered, sells her soul to the queen of the underworld, and goes back as a zombie to seek revenge on the people that killed her. It is a complete graphic novel, 112 pages, including back matter content, and it's done. We are just on Kickstarter right now trying to get print funds and finishing funds so we can make this book happen. So you should check it out at pixiedustcomic.com, or heading over to Kickstarter and doobly doing Pixie Dust so you can check it out. It is awesome. I've never been more proud of a book in my entire life. All right, let's get on with the show. Take it away, Tara. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
What am I passionate about these days? A lot. The biggest thing that motivates me every single morning is inspiring people to live with more ease. And the reason why that is such a big passion for me is because I used to be pretty freaking miserable. And I know what it's like to be down in the dumps, to feel lost, to feel like my life isn't going anywhere. And this passion came from working in the legal industry for 12 years. And I worked as a paralegal, and I worked myself basically almost to death and got pretty sick from the stressful environments. And it had me really think, you know, is this all there is? Like, I went to college, I got a good job, I followed the societal scripts, but why am I so miserable? And it wasn't until I started doing some of my own personal work that I realized that I was miserable. I had to own it. And if I wanted to change it, I had to change myself, and it was going to require hard work. And I know there are so many people out there that feel the exact same way. You know, they got the job that they're supposed to get, you know, and work hard for, yet they come home from work to their spouse, to their families, and they are miserable. They're fed up, they feel lost, they feel overwhelmed, they feel trapped. And I want to be a person in the world that helps people get out of that mindset and change up their lifestyle in a realistic way. I don't want to be someone who's going to tell others, you can change your life by positive thinking, because I think that's a load of crap. I believe action is the biggest key to helping people get out of their ruts. And that's what I'm passionate about. And that's what inspires me.
Yeah, so I take I break sort of like self-help kind of stuff into like inspirational and practical. Mm-hmm. Where like I feel like I come down more on the practical side, where it's like I'm going to tell you how to get through it. Like I'm going to tell you like the steps you need to like do this thing. But you can't even get to that part unless you have the right mindset where you believe that you can do it, and that you believe that like you internally can make a change. I have done so many talks and had so many conversations where I give a step-by-step guide basically to like getting like becoming successful. And when I used to do those talks, nobody would I would get very low ratings or middling ratings on like when I would do and I always wondered why. And I talked to some people afterwards, and they're like, there's just so much, like I don't think I can do it. And so when I started going back and being like, So you can do it for these reasons. Like, I'm not a special snowflake. Like, we all can do it. It's not really that hard. And then if I got people in the right mindset to like make a change, then I started getting like these massive like positive reactions to the things that I was saying, because you have the mindset shift takes over and you go, oh my God, I can do it. Now, how do I do it? And then I'm like, aha. There we go.
That's exactly it. I mean, you think about the coaches that go into the locker room before the game, right? You know, all these players have been practicing day in, day out, you know, honing in on their skill sets and execution. But if they're not in the right mindset, it doesn't mean shit, you know? So basically, just like what you said, you have to be that coach in the locker room. You have to provide people with no nonsense inspiration. And sometimes that inspiration comes from being vulnerable with your audience and telling them your story, right? And when you do that, then you create connection and people see you as a real human being, someone that they can relate to. And with those things in place, then you can transition to that practicality side. You know, you don't like where you are? Well, how about let's work on these steps? But those steps don't mean anything if your mind is full of garbage, right?
Yeah, I love that because for me, one of the things that really started growing my business is when I would just tell people like what was happening in my own life. Like I talked about that I was depressed to the verge of suicide a couple of years ago, that like I was having these problems, that I was doing this, and then simultaneously my business was growing and I was like making a lot more money than most people do. And and people would come to me and say, you know, like, if you can do it, like, and you're as like flawed and messed up as you are, like, it gives me a lot of hope that I can do it too. I remember my big inspiration for me when I was younger was Kevin Smith, the guy who did Clerks and Mallrats and such.
Yes.
And I didn't find him very motivational or inspirational. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound really mean.
Do it.
I was really mean when I was a kid. Kind of mean now, but I was really mean. What inspired me was like, that fat schlocky fuck is famous, and he like if that fat schlocky fuck can do, and I listened to him talk, and like I like bought all of his movies, but I was like, if he can like make this a movie and it can like be a thing, and he's just some schlub from Red Bank, like, I can do this too. Like, nobody is gonna tell me that guy is more talented than me. He may work harder than me. He may have know how to like break a system down and like tell a story now better than me. But nobody in the world is gonna tell me that dude is like more innately talented than anybody on the planet.
That's exactly it. And the thing is that, you know, Kevin Smith, what you just said was he may work harder than you. And that's the thing. He probably, you know, people who have quote unquote made it, you know, they have execution, but they have focused execution. And you only get focused execution when you're in that right mindset. So for you to sit there and say to yourself, like, well, how the hell did he make it? Look at him. If he can make it, I can make it. That's the mindset that will propel you forward, you know. And going back to what you said previously about you sharing personal details of your life and then seeing the reaction from your fans, that is priceless. I remember last spring, I had finally announced on social media, and for me, this was a huge thing. And I wrote an article about it, about me being sober. And I had hit my 3-year sobriety mark, yet nobody in my life knew that I was struggling with it. And nobody knew that I had struggled with alcohol because I kept it private. So when I finally came out and said, here's the deal, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I used to drink myself to black out, you know, every single evening, and now I'm sober, and here's how I did it. And by putting forth our defects, flaws, whatever you want to call them, people can relate to you. And people are like, oh, wow. She looks good on social media, but wait, she also has demons. Wait, if she can do it, so can I. And, ever since I put that story out there, still to this day, I get people writing in every other week about that story and thanking me and wanting to maybe work with me as a coach to help them, along their journey, whatever that may be. But it's connection and it's being real and being authentic. And that's why I love you, Russell. Seriously, you say what you feel and you own it, and you're not afraid if it's not a popular opinion, and you're not afraid to change your mind either. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't want to do, or it stops them from even getting started.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, so I remember before I started making comics or making things really at all, and I would, besides Kevin Smith, most of the people that I looked up to were very polished, like Wes Anderson.
Okay.
Was like, I don't know, like Wes Anderson, I'd have never heard like him talk negatively about himself or like have a real conversation about that kind of stuff, which is fine. Like, he's Wes Anderson. I don't expect that of him. But I remember when I started making comics, and I was like, oh my God, I'm losing so much money. Like, how can people make this work? And I saw an article by Jim Zub on his website where he broke down like every dollar that he made from Skull Kickers, the profit, the loss, and everything for like, and this was, I think, 12 episodes or 12 issues or so in. It was several issues in. Like, Jim Zub at that point was a name that like you would recognize if you knew comics. And I was like, oh my God, like, he's struggling? Well, if he's struggling, then like I can struggle and still be okay. Mm-hmm. I think that when you're at like the beginning level and you're looking up and you're like, all of these people are so successful, I don't know how I can ever be that. And you kind of put them on this pedestal, but when they have the humility to like come down and be like, no, like, most days it sucks.
Right.
It's a couple days of awesome, and then like most of it is struggling to like come up with a story, or it's struggling to like find clients, or it's figuring out how Facebook ads work, which I still don't understand, or like any of those things. And like it's about trying things and then it not working, and like knowing when to pull the plug and not pull the plug, and dropping thousands of dollars that like go nowhere, and all these things. Like, you just think about it and you're like, oh my God, like these, like when you're doing it and you're at the beginning of your career and these things are happening and you're failing constantly and like you haven't really had any success, to look up and see somebody who's ahead of you, whether it's one step ahead of you, 10 steps or 100 steps, saying like, I tried to make this company and it failed, or I tried to make this book and it failed, or I tried to run Facebook ads and it was a nightmare. Like, to see somebody who is clearly more successful than you also struggling, mm-hmm. Or knowing that they have the ability to struggle, I think it not only humanizes them, which is important when you're trying to sell things, but more importantly, that humanization makes it okay for you to also fail.
That's exactly it. And the great thing is that when you fail, like I have, when was it? Last April, I launched a 4-week challenge for people to create more time in their day-to-day affairs for self-care, because we're so freaking busy and we wear ourselves out constantly. And I wanted to help people stop doing that. It was a huge failure. I had 2 people sign up, only 2 people. And I shouldn't say only, it's better than 0. But I had 2 people sign up. They paid for the beta course. They went through it, and I got a whole crap load of feedback. And the feedback wasn't negative. It was a lot of feedback of areas to improve, but I could have just stopped putting out courses and workshops, but instead my audience was aware that this didn't work out, but they see me again try over and over and over again. And that gives me a relatable, people can relate to me because of that, because I'm not afraid to fall on my face in front of everyone and go, yeah, that sucked. It didn't work. Let's try it again. What do you guys want to do? And asking your audience, and inviting them in to be a part of your business. Because when we hear the words fan thrown around, oh, my fans want this, oh, my fans want this, and so, I think it loses its meaning, because fans, I don't think people really understand how impactful a reader writing in can motivate you to keep you going after you failed 12 times in a month, and having the humility to fail and go, all right, that sucked. Let's get back up and try it again, and let's see what I learn. It's been a ride, and it continues to be a ride. And I think when people who own their own businesses and do it in an online space share failures and share the highs and the lows of every single day, it draws people in and it inspires people to take action in their life. So I guess that's why I keep doing it. If I can be an example for anyone who's trying to just better their life in general, come watch me. Like, watch me fail and get back up again. And maybe this will work, maybe it won't, but just to continue on, to persevere, it's key. I could talk about this for days, I feel like.
We can do that. Well, maybe not days, but like for the next hour
right?
or so. So there's this great quote, which is, I'm going to butcher it now, but if you can't be a shining example, you have to be a horrible warning, something like that. And I was like, well, I can be a horrible warning. Like, I don't know if I can be a great example, but like, I can nail horrible warning.
That's right.
Like, I could tell you, I talk about my new book, and I'm like, hey, so this is everything that I learned in the past 10 years. So like, you don't have to be me. You can learn from me and then be better than me. Like, that's my only goal for you, is like, I don't want you to be like me. I don't even like me. I want you to be better than me. Like, please be better than me. Like, don't do all of the mistakes that I made.
Right.
But I want to go back to what you were talking about like bringing your audience into the business, because the biggest successes that I've ever had were when I've asked the people what they wanted.
Yes.
Like, I have this monster anthology that we just shipped, and that came about because I would be at shows. And I would be like, so what kind of stuff do you like? And like, monsters. What kind of creators do you like? And they would give me names. And I was like, cool. What do you think of me doing a monster anthology? Not a horror anthology, but one devoted to monsters. And they were like, I want that. I want to buy that. That sounds like an awesome thing. When can I buy that? When can I get it? Give it to me now. And I was like, probably something to that. And it became the most successful Kickstarter campaign we've ever launched. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have success just like doing your own thing in private. I have had successes. The most successful book, like singular book that we do, Katrina Hates Dead Shit, that book was completely done with like me and an artist before I had any audience at all. But the monster anthology ended up being so successful, for sure, 100%, because I brought the audience in and asked them what they wanted. Then I got a Facebook group for authors and creators, and I just keep asking them like what kind of stuff they want. And eventually I might turn that data into a course or webinars or something, membership community or something. But I'm getting data on like what people have told me that they are struggling with and what they want. In fiction, I ask people, like people are telling me like what kind of things do they want me to do, and then I'm not just making the thing that they want. I'm making a thing that I want with their input.
That's it. And I think to backtrack a little bit, the key is asking people for their feedback. And that can be a bit intimidating. I think we all have this fear of wanting to be accepted as who we are. And by asking, I know this is especially for me, it was hard for me to ask people what they want to read on Be Moved or what they want me to talk about, because I felt like it was a weakness. But when I broke through that and said, okay, screw it, I'm just going to ask in my newsletter, I got an outpouring of people saying, well, you know what, I want you to talk about a topic about how to deal with a difficult coworker, or what do you do when your husband cheats on you? And these people are being vulnerable with me because I in turn said, hey, I'm raising my hand. I need your feedback to make this place better, and you can be a part of it. And when you invite people in, they take ownership of it. And then they also go, hey, so-and-so, read this website, go to this person's podcast, because they have that ownership. They have seen that their feedback matters and that they're acknowledged for their vulnerability. So asking for feedback right away, like when you're building something, whatever it is, if it's a blog, a website, a podcast, an art project, asking for feedback, even when it seems scary, that is gold. And I wish I would have done that when I first started.
Me too, but I don't think anyone's going to do it when they first start. It's just too intimidating.
It is.
You've got to have some people read your book or read your thing and say that they love it before I think you can be okay, like, asking them what they loved about it and why they loved it. You can kind of get around this by going and asking somebody why they love something else. Like, what do you love about my friend? I'm looking at my friend's does this thing called Tentacle Kitty, so I'm just going to use that as an example. What do you love about Tentacle Kitty? And then you can, like, do some sort of data about, like, what they love about it, and kind of, like, at least get some data about what they like and don't like about other things that are like yours. But it is so hard until you at least have some rabid fans to say, okay, I know you like the things that I do, so I am going to ask you what I can do to improve, because I already know that you like me and that you're going to buy things from me, or you're going to read articles, or you're going to stay connected to me. Because you really can't ask that of somebody who is lukewarm of you. Like, they're like, well, I don't know, I don't really care. Like, I'm just going to go into something else. But once you have people who are committed to your brand, you can't, like, those people want you to succeed. Like, in order to get those people to respond to you, they have to want you to succeed and want the site to get better. And casual fans, like, they might give you some examples of things that you could do better, but it might not even be helpful.
Exactly.
But when you ask rabid fans who are, like, right in your target market, they're going to give you really good feedback.
Yeah, and in asking for help when you need it it's key. Like, in February I started getting really sick, and the connections I had made with my fans were what kept Be Moved alive when I couldn't work on it. They continued to write in and say, hey, where's your newsletter? And I'd respond back with an honest answer saying, hey, unfortunately right now, Be Move's on hold because I'm sick and I have to take care of my health. And just building a rapport, it's so priceless. I mean, this is how things spread. You may not have to have a huge budget to do Facebook ads or a huge production team or virtual assistants and all that. What you do have when you first start out is time, and that time should be spent, at least in my opinion, by creating connections, by reaching out to people that may not normally know who the hell you are and making it known in a authentic way, coming together on some sort of similar topic and expanding from there. because those connections will keep you going when you go, oh, you know what? I'm going to quit today. I'm done. This isn't working. And then suddenly you get an email in your inbox and it says, hey, I haven't heard from you. Or, hey, could you write about this? And it's those connections that keep you going in the dark times in your business. And there will be dark times. I don't care what kind of business you're in. You're going to have ups and downs. And connection will propel you out of the dark into the good.
Yeah, I used to have a bunch of KPIs, that key performance indicators, for those of you who may not know, like things that you would look at, like mailing list subscriptions and open rates and like bounce rates, all this garbage stuff that, like, yes, it is important once you get to a certain level to be able to have a website that launches under 3 seconds. And like all of these things become important eventually in a business as you're trying to optimize stuff. But at the beginning, even when you're hitting like low 6 figures, you don't, like, the necessity to focus on all of these different performance indicators paralyzes you in your business.
Holy crap. Yes. Yes, it does.
So I wiped all of that
Really?
away. And I said, my only performance indicator is how many quality conversations do I have with people throughout a week? Because that has
golden.
Well, it made me realize that, like, if I just keep having quality conversations, like meeting new people, and that included talking to people I already knew, but meeting new people and having quality conversation with them, having people that I already knew, and having quality conversations with them, it all ended up working out in the end. Like, if I had a certain amount of quality conversations, I would make X amount of money at the end of a month.
It's true.
Yeah, and it went back all the way to sales, actually, when I was actually like working at Sprint. I realized as I was tracking it out, it's like I never necessarily got the sales that I was trying for, but if I had enough quality conversations with people and kept enough connections going, I would always make the sales that I needed that month, because people would come out of the woodwork and they'd say, I need 10 new phones, or this would happen, or this other thing would happen, just by like keeping the infrastructure. And so my new only metric currently is how many quality conversations can I have in a day. It hasn't failed me yet. I'm not saying that it's the best performance indicator necessarily, but it definitely makes your life easier when you're like, the goal of my business is to make quality connections, not just say, hi, how are you doing? Or like, will you want to buy my thing? But making quality connections. And I brought that back to my mailing list. Also, we were talking about this before we went on the air about like, my goal now is when someone comes on my mailing list to give them a bunch of free books, give them other free things, drill them with content, make sure they have a lot of value from me, make sure that I'm keeping the conversation going with them. And then eventually I get way more emails now than I've ever gotten before. I get way more people on my mailing list than I've ever gotten before. Way more interaction, which leads to more sales as more people work their way through the funnel, and a higher percentage of them like you and then trust you, and then they trust you enough that they're willing to buy from you.
Well, and you created a friendship, a virtual friendship, not just, hey, give me your email address in exchange for this crappy freebie, right? Because that's everywhere. Anyone can do that. People don't want to give out their email address for crappy freebies and crappy content. People want to be connected to others. They want to have real conversations. I mean, we're living in a fascinating time right now where we can talk to strangers across the world, and we could be homeless with a phone, and we can make those connections. You don't have to be in the White House and have so much money and know so-and-so. You can talk to anyone and everyone. But when you have connections in a real fucking honest way that isn't, driven by, I want to make a sale off of you. I want to make a profit off of you. If you make connections because you are passionate about what you're doing, and if you have crystal clear clarity on why you're doing what you're doing, then that comes through in your connections in a productive way. Maybe this person won't buy from you, but maybe this person will be a cheerleader for you and tell all of their friends, and their friends are your ideal customers. But connection is gold. And I'll say it over and over again. Social media is going to get even more spammy and even more nasty and ugly. And it's going to be harder and harder to make a real, authentic impact if you don't have tons of money. But if you start small with 3 people a day by making a connection, in 1 year, holy crap, you'll have around 1,000 people that are going to be rooting for you no matter what.
Yeah.
That's how we got connected. I reached out to you on Twitter, and you're like, hey, let's do a video call. And we chatted for 2 hours, and you blew my mind.
Yeah, and I remember.
That's how we connected. That was insane.
That's back when I was doing those kind of calls. But yeah, it's really interesting how the connections don't necessarily work as you would ever expect them to. For instance, after that 2-hour call, I don't think I talked to you for over a year. And then I was redesigning my site, or putting a new landing page up, and I went to your webpage, and I was like, holy shit, this webpage is good now. I remember when I looked at the last time, and I was like, this is shitty. Okay, I could say it. Because you said it, I'll say it. This is not good, but that's okay because she's coming to talk to me for 2 hours. And I was kind of put it out of my mind, assuming that nothing would ever happen to this site. Most people I talk to don't do anything. They don't take any action. So, I kind of expected. Right. So when I went to your site after I put this new landing page up, I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to her now because this site is amazing. And now you're on my show. From that connection that we made over a year ago.
Right? And then you're going to be speaking at a mastermind group I'm involved with on Friday. And you're going to create more connections. And in turn, by me inviting you as a speaker, I strengthen my connections with my fellow masterminders. It's crazy what connection can do for you. And instead of focusing on all those freaking likes and hearts and all that crap on social media, focus on real comments, real conversations, and conversations that have weight to them. They're not just surface talk. Talk about what matters to you. And so many people are afraid to do that nowadays, especially because if you say something on Facebook, it lives there forever. But, people forget that you have the right to change your mind anytime you want. And it's evident with you. You say how you feel, and it's amazing. And you don't sugarcoat anything.
Yeah, and a lot of times I do change my mind quite a bit with ways to do things. But I think this goes back to, so most people that are entrepreneurs focus on this sales first mentality. The first thing they hit you with is a sale. I was like, hey, so I always focused on a value-first mentality, which is I give value to you and the sale will eventually come if it's meant to come, or something will happen eventually. This is really hard to do when you first get started. Nobody talks about how hard it is to do when you first get started. People that are already making millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars and can then drop time and spend time on a podcast or a blog or things, they gloss over how hard it is to meet somebody and not immediately try to make a sale because you're trying to make your rent or your mortgage or your kids. They never talk about this. And I will say it's not easy. Being value first is not easy because it's a long-term strategy. And most of the people you give value to are never going to buy from you. And most of them are probably not going to care even a little bit. But those people that do care end up being friends of yours or rabid enthusiasts of yours, or they may not buy from you or a thing from you, but they might help you in another way, or they might just be an interesting friend that you have for the rest of your life. And the value of that when you first meet somebody is unknown. But the amount of people who will actually buy from you the first time is very small. So if you focus on the people that are going to buy from you that first time, then you cut off 98% at least of the total amount of people that you will meet. Whereas maybe 20 or 30% of people you meet will be friendly or helpful or just interesting, or be able to do something for you that you don't expect, or you put it in the back of your mind and like 3 years later you're like, oh shit, I'm now developing a membership site, and Bob over here does membership sites. Maybe I can reach out to them now that we've been friends for 3 years and ask them some real questions about this.
Exactly. And value, it's the long road, right? By providing value over and over and over again, especially in the beginning, it's hard because you're not focusing on the sale, at least in this situation. You're not focusing on the sale, and yes, you still have to pay your rent and have food in the fridge, but value provides you long-term success. And it also means that when you do have something for sale that is of huge value, that you don't have to be spammy about it, because you've created a real rapport, a real connection with people. And when you come out with a product that you've been, touching upon in other areas of your business, then people are going to go, hell yes, sign me up. And then you don't have to be spammy and send out cheesy newsletters and go on Facebook Live and say, please, 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 please buy my product, which is all fine that you do that, but you'll get more sales just organically. I mean, I saw that you were selling your book last week during your book launch, or was that 2 weeks ago?
I don't remember.
And
life is so long.
It was an instant hell yes, like done. You know what I mean? And it's because you have given me so much value. And granted, we don't talk often. I mean, it's been a whole year, but I knew that by buying your book, and when I have, the time to read it, that I'm going to get even more value, that it's an investment. And it's done organically. And that is the hardest thing to do, especially when we live in this quick turnaround society. Go, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. Well, if you do that with your business and you do that with people who connect with you, then you burn everything out.
Right. Well,
just burn it out.
Even more so, like if you do get spammy on your website or something eventually, because at least once a year, everybody that I know launches a product, and during that launch period, it's massively spammy. Yeah. I'm getting a new book. I'm putting out a new book on Kickstarter in 3 weeks. I'm gonna tell you, my whole website is gonna be about fucking buying my book for a month. Everything's gonna be about buying my book for a fucking month. But for the rest of the year, and because I've built up so much value previously with people, they will allow you to spam them for a while.
Yes.
Because you have, I call it putting deposits in the Goodwill Bank. I'm not the first human being who's ever thought of this, but in my book we talk about making deposits into the Goodwill Bank, where you're making deposits just like it's a regular bank, because when you launch a product, you're going to be making withdrawals. And most people withdraw all the time, or they withdraw immediately without making any deposits. But if you're making deposits over and over and over again by doing something like this podcast, or doing blogs, or being generally a friendly human being, people will notice that, and they will be more willing to buy your product when it does launch. Then they will be more accepting of you spamming them for a while, because they want you to succeed. And then they know that after this launch, we're going to go right back to like giving a lot of value and talking and like giving and doing different stuff that is not this launch. Like this launch is a finite experience.
Exactly. And you know, the crazy thing, Russell, is that I'm a really visual person, and I just had an idea for you. Like, you're sitting there talking about constantly depositing, right, value into this piggy bank, and then maybe once a year you withdraw, but then you go back to depositing. I'm like imagining an awesome business comic book where you have this like insane looking piggy bank, and the piggy bank is the highlight of your comic book, and its size and its integrity and health is all dependent on what you put in and how much you take out. Like, I could see that being an awesome, I don't know.
I'm writing it down.
Something really neat. Yeah, I think that would be really cool, because we live in a visual society, you know, and especially with the internet, like, that'd be a really cool comic book for entrepreneurs, but like with your pizzazz and your funkiness to it. I think that'd be awesome.
I'm writing it down.
Do it.
Visit it later. Yeah, I mean, there are people that launch a lot more than once a year, but those people tend to give massive amounts of value back to people.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, so if I want to launch 4 times a year, I better give 4 times the value to people. Like, I better do a better job of putting my deposits in. Because honestly, like, I never feel bad about spamming people, ever. And that's because I give a lot back.
Right.
Like, I give enough back that I'm like, well, here's the deal. If you want me to keep doing this thing, I need to make money. I make money in this way. All of that free shit that you get comes from this 2 months of launching and then being at shows and such. Like, that is where all of my business comes from. So if you like that free stuff, you have to put up with this other stuff. I'm not saying you have to buy it. I don't care if you buy it. It would be great if you buy it. Don't care if you buy it. But what I do care about is that you put up with it, because it is what is funding this podcast and every other thing that I do, speaking at shows and libraries and stuff. All of that stuff is built on all the value is built from making money now. And I think if you give enough value back to people, and this is something that I struggled with for a long time, especially before the podcast launch, of like, I felt kind of gross launching or like doing stuff or asking for money. But eventually I was like, no, I don't feel bad anymore. Like, I give so much value to people, and like, I fill their lives with hours of like free stuff every week. Like, I don't feel bad about asking for money to like fund it, because I am giving all of this stuff first. And I am not expecting them to buy the thing. I'm just expecting them to put up with it.
And to add on to it, a huge shift that happened for me, I remember when I did my first launch for my first course, I felt so gross, you know, sending out these newsletters, telling people about it. And granted, I had a lot of people enroll in it, but I felt really, really gross about it, because it was new, it was uncomfortable, and because I was coming from a place of asking. But what happened was, when I listened to a podcast by, I think it was Seth Godin, and he emphasized that when you create something, whatever it is, and you have people who are responding to it, when you have people who are interacting with it, what you are doing is a privilege. It's an honor that you have people reading your content. It's an honor that you have people listening to your podcast. And when you make that shift, then not only do you want to create more value and give things away, but then when you do have something for sale, you take more ownership in it, and that spamminess and that insecurity kind of it dwindles down, and it's not so loud.
Right. Well, and also, to go back to what we were talking about before, if you are making a product for the people in your audience or that you know, that will help them or entertain them. I mean, I write fiction books and comics, most of them. So, like, my books are not, like, going to help you lose weight in 10 days or, like, any of that stuff. Like, they're just entertaining and, like, soul edifying. But, like, if you're, as opposed to my nonfiction book, which is, like, actually has a pain point that millions of people have. But if you're writing a book or you're writing something for the audience that you're talking to, that you know that they want, then you are obligated to them to tell them about it because, like, you made it for them. Like, they said this is the thing they wanted when we launched that monster anthology. It's like, hey, remember that thing y'all told me that you wanted? Here it is. Go buy it.
Right?
Go buy it now because, like, here it is. When I launched the Sell Your Soul book, it was the same thing. It's like, hey, you know, all the podcast listeners and all the things and all the things you've been talking about for the last, like, I don't know, decade of my life. Like, this is the book. Here it is. This answers all the questions you've asked me over the last decade. So if you are giving value and talking to your audience and basically doing all the stuff we talked about, you end up not feeling spammy because you're doing this for the audience. Like, you're doing this for the people. Like, you are now creating something. Yes, you are creating it and you are charging money for it, but it is for other people as well, as much as it is for you. And then you can feel very good about offering it to people.
Exactly. And I think for anyone listening out there, I think it's important to realize too, when you have something for sale and you've previously given value over time consistently, and then you have something for sale, I wish someone would have told me this. The first course I launched, I received some nasty ass feedback about me selling. And I received emails from some people that said, well, I can't believe you're asking people to buy this from you. So I want to kind of turn this around right now, Russell, and ask you, how do you deal with negative feedback when you are selling your soul?
I don't give a fuck about it. That thing. I mean, I wish I had a better answer, but I've dealt with it enough that I just don't care. Like, my answer to them is always, I'm sorry you feel that way. Unfortunately, this is how I have a business. This is a business, and I have to make money. I give a lot of information away for free. I give a lot of books away for free. These books are what allow me to continue to do that. So I'm sorry for that. Maybe you're not in the right audience for me. But if you don't feel like my books, I know my books have value. I'm not just giving free books away. My books are incredibly valuable. People love them, and I'm giving them to people. But I'm not just saying these books are free, here's this garbage stuff. Like, my books have value. I shouldn't give them away for free. I'm giving them away for free because I want you to be invested in what I'm doing. I want you to see that you're in the right place so that next time I launch something, you want to buy it because you want to support that. And if you're worried or you're complaining that I'm charging for something, you are in the wrong place. But the good news is information is ubiquitous. You can go find information anywhere. Nothing that I've ever said is new. None of the way that I combine ideas together is unique to me, but these are ideas that have been around for hundreds of years, whether we're talking about like psychology or psychopathy or religion or building a business, like this podcast, like all of this stuff is available other places. People are here, I hope, because they like the way that I talk about these things and I make it unique to them. So when I put something out there and someone says, I can't believe you're charging for it, which very rarely happens anymore. But my answer is, well, I can't believe I'm giving all this stuff away for free. Like I'm giving all this stuff away for free, like thousands of dollars of stuff. Like I could easily charge thousands of dollars for what's in that Sell Your Soul book, and I'm selling it for $5.
And it's hard too when you first start out and you get your first negative feedback on whether if it's an article or a freebie, something that you offer your audience for free, or even a product. It's hard to not take it personal. But after a while, you come to the realization that, you know what, if I'm going to do this and if I'm going to rock it and if I'm going to own it and be successful because there's no other option, then the naysayers and the negative feedback that isn't relevant it's going to be fuck off, in a very, very nice way.
Now, I will say that some people have bought my book and they've had a negative experience, like it's come and it's been ripped or damaged or stuff. And that is different. That is different.
Yes.
Like somebody that says like this is a problem, like this is a like I have a problem with this thing. These are different. We are talking specifically about someone who says, I can't believe you're charging for this, or like this isn't worth the price, or yada, yada, yada. And I can also go back now that people have bought it and they've enjoyed it and they've loved it and been like, well, you're objectively wrong because all of these people bought it and they loved it and they bought it at a higher price point actually than like what I'm giving it to you for. So like you are wrong. Like, I'm not saying that you should buy my thing. There's plenty of stuff that I look at and go, I can't believe someone buy it. There's plenty of books and toys and things that I love, books and toys, that I go, I would never spend that amount of money on that. But I understand that there is value there. Like, I personally would never buy that thing. But if someone else is willing to buy it, then cool, that is fine. I definitely don't think that they are absurd for charging for it. Mm-hmm. So the idea that like you have to bring a lot of people into your funnel so some of them buy. Funnels are just a function of a bunch of people at the top, some at the bottom, and then you can optimize it to get like the most people to the bottom. But like, it's not a hard concept. Put a fuck ton of people at the top, and a lot of them are going to fall out before they hit the bottom.
That's right.
But the idea that like you should give stuff for free is something that I do to move people further down the funnel so they will buy other stuff or the full versions of the thing that they're buying. It is not because I'm just putting garbage out there that should be free. And that is, I feel like, what most people do. They don't put garbage out there for free, but they put things out there for free, and then they value it at free. My books and the things I give for free, I do not value at free. I value the connection that I have with that person so much that I'm willing to give, $30 of thing for free so that I can strengthen my connection with them. And that is, I think, a big mindset shift that most business people don't have. They think I have to put this white paper out or these other things or do these webinars for free because they're worth free. And that is a fallacy. The mindset that has worked for me is these are worth a lot of money. However, I am willing to give them to you for free so that I can find out and we can find out if we resonate on the same frequency of weirdness so that you can be comfortable buying all of my stuff later. But this is like, this conversation is not a free conversation. Me and Tara are having it together, and I've had it with dozens of other people on so that you can have it for free so that we can see if we resonate on the right frequency of weirdness together. Not just me and Tara, but me and the audience and Tara in the audience as well to see who resonates with her as well. But just because I make this for free and nobody gets paid doing it, and I actually pay to host it, it is put out for free so that you can be confident that you can that I am saying the things and Tara is saying the things that you want to resonate with so you can join and have a deeper conversation and resonate more deeply with us.
And that's absolutely it. And I mean, like I said, I could go back to connection over and over again. There's so much bullshit out there in the web, and it's only going to get worse. And if you can start your business or your movement or whatever you're passionate about based on connection. Like seriously, just base it on connection and let it ride. Like see where it brings you. It'll bring you to some amazing places and to some amazing people, and it will provide you with opportunities you never thought before. Like when I started building Be Moved, I had a dream of having it be a community of other writers, but I was afraid to friggin' ask for other people to contribute. Now I have, a writer's circle that, there's 16 new faces in the writer's circle just within the last week that raised their hand and said, hell yeah, I like what you're doing. I want to join forces. And when you can get people passionate about whatever you're doing and get them involved, it's magic. That's where fulfillment comes from, because you can create a monster of a business that brings in tons of money and doesn't give a shit about the people who are buying your products, and you could be bleeping miserable. What's the point? If you're going to create a business, be passionate about it and be passionate about the people who want to jump on your fun bus and go for the ride. I don't know if fun bus was the right word.
I liked it.
It sounded good.
I don't know if I liked it or didn't like it, but I'm just going to let it go and sit there and marinate, and we'll see what other people think.
Fun bus.
So we need to work towards wrapping up.
Let's do it.
And I want to talk about Be Moved, the site, and the history of it. And I really want to know what the hell happened between our last conversation and now, because this is really the first time we've talked in any meaningful way since there. So can you talk to us a little bit about what Be Moved is, how it's grown, what you've done, just all the things. Imagine I haven't talked to you in a year.
Sure. So when we first connected, I started Be Moved with the mission of helping people live a better life. Well, that's great. And I was super stoked, but that was so broad and ambiguous. And I was not willing to accept the idea that I couldn't help everyone, right? So I would put things out on Be Moved and create products and create articles and wouldn't get any traction. And it wasn't until I got crystal clear on why I was doing this. And my why is what continues to propel me forward. And my why is that I want to help people live with more ease. And I believe that you can live with more ease by creating a healthier and happier, no nonsense lifestyle. And when I got that clarity, then I was able to move forward and say, okay, but what am I really doing? All right, this is my why, because I was fucking miserable before and I changed it. And I want to help people get out of that misery and live with more ease. But how and why and what? And it wasn't until I sat down and created a vision. And my vision was something that I could go back to when I felt lost, or when I felt overwhelmed, or when I threw my hands up and said, this isn't working. And the vision is this. I want to teach, and this sounds huge, and I'm going to own it. I want to teach 1 million people how to live a healthier and happier life by providing them with the best tools, resources, and information available. Because when you feel shitty, you have the power of going onto Google and type in, I hate my job, what do I do? And you can get a bunch of nonsense information. You could, Google, I am feeling really depressed and I hate the relationship I'm in. And you'll get tons of garbage that populates. And that pisses me off. What it ends up doing is it turns people who are looking for help turns them into a hamster, just going round and round in a wheel. And I want it to be a place, I wanted Be Moved to be a place where it was real, that said, all right, here's the deal. I'm struggling with this. This is how I got out of it. No nonsense, no sugarcoating, and own it and be real and be vulnerable. And by creating that connection and that vulnerability, the connection based on vulnerability, it has expanded Be Moved, and it has created essentially a community of people who write in, that have never met me before and may not realize that I'm the only person behind Be Moved right now. And they write me and say, yeah, my husband just cheated on me and I don't know what to do. Like, holy shit. That's unfortunate, but that's huge for you to reach out to a stranger and say, I need help. And I trust that if I ask you for help, I'll get it. And it was the shift of owning it. It was the shift of saying, you know what, this is what I want to do. I want to help people live with more ease, and I'm going to do it in a different way. And I'm going to do it in a real way. And it was that shift that made me go from wannabe blogger, I don't know what I'm doing, WordPress is scary, to, all right, I'm going to own this. This is my shot. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it full out. And that's how Be Moved went from itty bitty 30 visitors a month to what it is now, and a lot of it came from my kick-ass conversation with you. I mean, you literally gave me a full-on 2-hour pep talk to own whatever the hell I wanted to do. And it was after that pep talk that I kind of went quiet and went, okay, it's time to work, with the evil laugh and the fingers, wiggling next to each other. But yeah, that's Be Moved. It's simple, it's sweet, it's no nonsense, no bullshit. And you know what? I'm going to be launching more and more products. And you know what? Some of them are going to do great. Some of them might not be doing great. But the awesome thing about Be Moved is that I get to transition out of it, because I raised my hand and said, you know what? I see a lot of people who want to help others live with ease. I see a lot of people who don't want to live their life the way it's going now and want to do something about it. And people are standing up, raising their hand, saying, I want to contribute. I want to share this with my friends. And it's taking work away from me, right? And people are sharing it in such a big way that I am now taking my personal bio and about me out of Be Moved and moving it to my own website, because Be Moved isn't just me who started it. It is a community of voices, and we're only going to grow bigger. That's what we're doing, and it's going to be awesome. I have no idea how big we're going to get. I don't know how we're going to do it, but that's where we're going.
Awesome. I love it. And the website is?
It's foreverbemoved.com. And you can go on there, check out the articles, see if you want to contribute, share a story, subscribe for my weekly newsletters. I send out one newsletter a week with the newest content, and if I have any offering, no spam, short and sweet. And there's also a Facebook community, 400 plus people, where it's a place where you can get a dose of happiness and inspiration delivered to your news feed a couple times a day. And it's short, it's simple, it's what people want. They don't want to be, at least my audience, doesn't want to be wrapped up in a 20-minute article. They want something that's short and sweet and that requires quick action with big results. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm so excited that it continues to gain momentum every single day. And it's also giving me one thing that I never thought would happen. I never ever entertained the idea of being a life coach. But when I started Be Moved, people kept asking me in emails, are you a life coach? I'm like, no, I'm not a life coach. But when I look back on it, all of my, as a former violin teacher, as a former paralegal, like I've always been in the teaching realm without realizing it. And Be Moved has given me an opportunity to create my own brand so I can help people who want to take it to the next level, you know? And that's the beauty, is when you build a business from the ground up in a slow way, then tons of, I mean, I imagine it like a tree, right? It's growing and you get a branch here and you get another branch here, and those branches grow more branches, and it just keeps going and going. And when you build something based on connection and based on vulnerability and being fucking real, you get more than you'd ever expect.
Awesome. I love it. All right. So, a couple last final questions to wrap up. The most important of which is, so I think I might know what your answer is to this question, but this is the time of the show when everybody who's looking at their drawing table or writing looks back up and pays attention for the next 30 seconds to 2 minutes, where you impart the one piece of wisdom you want everybody to leave this conversation with. It can be something you've said already. It can be something you haven't said yet. But what do you want our rapt audience to hear you say and leave this conversation feeling?
I want people to know that you can change your mind anytime you want. And the reason why this is important is because what prevents us from putting out our gifts and sharing our gifts and our passions with the world is the fear of, well, what happens if I change my mind later on? Are people going to think I'm a fraud? Or what happens if I decide to do things differently or completely ditch it? Well, that's the beauty of living. You get to change your mind any friggin' time you want to. And you don't need to explain yourself. And when you own that you can change your mind anytime you want to, then what happens is that you open yourself up to your higher power or whatever you believe in, and you get to say, guess what? I get to be me. I get to grow. I get to expand, because that's what I'm here to do. That's my message.
Awesome. I love it. And one final time, tell us where we can find you online and on social media.
Sure. You can connect with me on foreverbemoved.com, all spelt out. And that's where you can join the Be Moved community, where we emphasize living a healthier and happier life in a no-nonsense way. And you can also connect with me at taramassan.com if you're looking for a no-nonsense life coach, inspirational coach, someone who specializes in overcoming addiction or adversity in general. So you can connect with me on Facebook at just type in Forever Be Moved and you'll see the page come up, or Miss Tara Massan on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tara. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. What a great show.
So hope you enjoyed that one with Tara. If you did, please go find her online and let her know.